have, time before and time now, several different days to look at domain and range. It takes a while to get the hang of it. Not that it's that hard in the end. By the time you get the hang of it, you'll probably think it's fairly straightforward. But this example of this Ferris wheel going up and down, we talked about what domain and range were. The word domain, you just have to know, learn, memorize, whatever that it refers to. It's a word to mean possible x values. I'm saying possible x values here. If you look at the definition in the textbook, it probably says possible values of the independent variable, as in whatever's on that axis. And then the word range refers to possible values of whatever's on the y-axis, whatever the dependent variable is. In this Ferris wheel situation, we had somebody going around the Ferris wheel. The possible things on this axis were time. The time here had to be 0 or greater. It had to be on that side. Times that were negative weren't possible in this situation. So we would say the domain is time has to be greater than or equal to 0. Whereas the heights, the person was from 2 meters up to 26 meters. So the possible range is 2 to 26. Thanks. All right. On this ride here, is it possible to get up to 40 meters on that Ferris wheel? You can't, right? You can't get that high. It doesn't go that high. So it only, if you talk about the range, you're talking about between there and there. If you were doing a number line, that's what it would look like. Okay, and we did all that last time, right? We drew a number line for the possible times. We drew a number line for the possible heights. And that was our domain and range. Okay, there's a bunch of different ways, obviously, to write domain and range. Words, number line, using an inequality, using what was called interval notation, and that one is actually the easiest one to write, but probably we need practice at it, just getting the hang of the symbols. All right. If you do need to go back and review, I'll upload that one. I haven't done it yet, but I will. I do want to do a couple of the examples in here. I know usually you do them, you do them from the textbook or on your own or whatever. But I'm thinking that some of you are probably on this page with a little bit written for example 1 here. Okay, example 1. I think I got you started on example 1, and then you hopefully finished example 1. This is the domain for this thing. There it is as a number line. Here it is as words. With an inequality, this is how you write it. They have some extra stuff in the textbook that makes it look really complicated. I don't want us to worry too much about that at this point, but we can add that in. This is the main point about the inequalities. Hopefully you're okay writing inequalities like that. What we didn't write here is the range. I'd like us to write the range for this. Okay? The domain is possible x values. The range is the possible y values. These are the values that are covered from there to there. Okay? When you're thinking about domain and range, imagine that you squish the graph onto the x-axis or the y-axis. If I was to draw this graph here, let's make it a different color, actually. Let's just do this, okay? If I was to take that thing and squish it onto the x-axis, that's going to give you your possible x values. If I do this, okay, if you compress that way, what x values are covered there? The x values from, right, this number line here, from there to there, right? Whereas if you squish it onto the y-axis, that'll give you your range, right? If you take this thing, if I want to know the range, squish it this way, right, to the y-axis kind of. It's hard to see there because I squished it too far to see, but it covers everything from what value? It covers everything from -4 up to what? Up to 5. There's a solid circle at 5, and there's an open circle at 4. What does that mean? Solid circle at 5. You can call it a closed circle or solid circle or closed circle. filled in, whatever you want to call it, that means it includes that point. Is 5 part of the range here? Okay, that means it includes that point. Whereas this is an open circle. Open circle. It's a hollow circle. It means there's nothing there. Okay, the open one, the white one means it's hollow. It doesn't include that point. Doesn't include that point. Okay, doesn't include -4. When you write that, then this is, on the number line you put those symbols, right? If we're doing a number line for this, that's basically just how to do a number line. Just imagine that it's compressed onto that axis there. If this was our number line, I guess I should have done that other part first, right? Solid circle there. Fill this in a little bit. Right, shade that in to say it covers all those things, and then that. That's showing the range as a number line. Maybe we can make a different color to match our. Oops. Come on. All right. That's the range as a number line. If you want to describe it with an inequality like this. These are easier than I think people think they are at some point. If you're trying to describe those two numbers, the possible y values are between those two numbers. Those are the boundaries. So I would write it down and say it goes from -4 up to 5. It's the values of y. It has to be less than or equal to 5. So you put a less than or equal to in between there. And the bigger end is at the 5 because the 5 is bigger, right? When you write those symbols. This one goes this way, but you don't put a line underneath. Okay, no line underneath. Because it doesn't include the 4. 4 is not included, so you just say y has to be greater than that. I know that this symbol, and this symbol are pointing the same way, but it depends how you read it. When you write a double inequality like this, you read it from the center. Y is greater than or equal to -4. If you read that backwards, it says y is greater than -4. And y is less than or equal to 5. You read these kind of things from the center. You don't say, you don't read it from left to right. You don't say -4 is less than y is less than or equal to 5. You read it from the center. It's two conditions on y. It says it's greater than -4 and less than or equal to 5. If you want to make it like the book, they do something a little weird here. Whoops, they don't erase everything. They put some other stuff on there, and I told you about this before. They tell you what set of numbers it belongs to, because you could have that it's integers or whole numbers or something, but they say it belongs to the real numbers. So they have these weird brackets around it, these curly brackets. They first, before they say what it is, they say that y has to be a real number. There's this symbol, y is a real number. That it looks like a semicircle. Okay, we talked about that last time, but just to remind you, if you look in the book, this is the important part of it. Y is between -4 and 5. This other stuff just says y has to be a real number. It's not it's not just integers or just whole numbers or something like that. If you want to do interval notation is this really easy one here, as long as you know what the difference between a round bracket and a square bracket is. All you're saying is you're putting the important parts here. Here's the boundary points. Those are the two important parts. And this. Okay, you're saying it's between these numbers. -4 up to 5. It includes 5, so you put a square bracket. It doesn't include 4, so you put a round bracket. That's called interval notation. Okay? So, includes 5, square bracket. Doesn't include 4, so you put a round bracket. Alright? I would like you to, if you haven't done it already, I want you to try this. Check with the textbook, because the solution for that is there. And make sure you can do it right. Okay? In at least 2 or 3 different ways. They ask for set notation. Set notation is using inequalities like this. And number line, words, all that stuff. And then what I want you to do is you don't have the answers to these two. I want you to do those, and I'm going to come around in the next 10 or so minutes, 10 or 15 minutes, and I am going to check that you can do this, okay? This is like a little open book kind of quiz for you here. Make sure you can do these. I'm going to come around, and I'm going to look at some point when you're done this, have a glance at whether you know what you're doing or not, judging by your answers to these two. In my mark book, I am going to put a mark out of 1. I'm either going to put a 0 out of 1, or I'm going to put a 1 out of 1. And I don't know whether I'll make it out of 1. Maybe I should make it out of 10,000. Doesn't really matter. I'll make it worth something in just a little bit, like it's a little... If I can tell from your answers to this that you know what you're doing, then that's something that I should record in my mark book. So I'll do that for you, okay? At some point in the next little while, you need to get these done, and I need to see that you can do them, okay? Ask for help. Look in the textbook. Ask the person next to you. But we need to walk out of here hopefully having got this done and understood. Okay, this section. Can you get going on that, please? Some point in the next 10 or so minutes, 10 or 15 minutes, get to the point of getting the example and then those two yours.